Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 4, and today we'll be taking a closer look at the differences, similarities, and resulting playstyles of pump-action shotguns and semi-automatic shotguns in Battlefield 4. Now, to start off with, I thought we kind of look over the key statistical differences between these two weapon categories. And first and foremost, of course, we have here fire rate, with the semi-automatic shotguns generally having a fire rate around 200 rounds per minute, plus minus maybe 10 rounds. The pump-action shotguns generally have a fire rate around 80, maybe 90 rounds per minute, making them significantly slower. On the other hand, of course, though, they put out more pellets per shot. In the case of shotguns, when comparing the same amount of shotgun ammunition, the damage model actually seems to be the same between all semi-automatic and pump-action shotguns, meaning that more pellets simply means more damage, and the semi-automatic shotguns seem to have less pellets than their brothers in the pump-action shotgun category. Now, this is nothing new. Everybody pretty much knows that the pump-action shotguns shoot slower, yet do more damage, while the semi-automatic shotguns do less damage but shoot quicker. Now, with that being said, however, what does that actually mean for real life performance? Because everything else seems to be of similar value. Now, there is one more difference between the pump-action shotguns and the semi-automatic shotguns when it comes from a general stat perspective, and that is their accuracy while moving. While their accuracy while standing still is identical for every shotgun in the game at 0.1 degrees of possible maximum or random bullet deviation, there is a difference when we look at while moving, generally between 0.4 and 0.8, with a few deviations, for example, for the UTS being a slightly more accurate while hip firing even than its counterparts. Now, on the other side, it doesn't really dictate the playstyle. That's what we're going to get into next. The playstyle isn't, in my opinion, actually determined by these small accuracy differences, because the way that shotguns work in Battlefield 4 is, of course, that they have this cone of fire random bullet deviation. That means that while these ADS values may seem rather nice, they don't actually kind of translate into any kind of real life performance. When using a shotgun, you always have to be aware that there is a decent chance that all your shots go off to one side and you don't actually hit your target at all, or that you get, of course, a lucky shot and you go right to the center and you take somebody out from 20 meters. Now, these are obviously the extreme cases, and shotguns aren't anywhere close to as unreliable as they used to be in Battlefield. However, nevertheless, this is still a thing in the game, and you should still be aware that even when you've got your shots right on target, you aren't necessarily getting that kill. Now, when it comes to the semi-automatic shotguns, this is where they kind of can skimp around this problem. The semi-automatic shotguns have a high fire rate. You can just spam fire down range and to kind of reduce the chance of not getting the kill because your enemy has time to turn around. You can put out so much damage close quarter with a shotgun that it doesn't really matter that you may miss one or two shots. It will eventually get you killed from time to time, but it generally isn't too much of a difference if you're using a shotgun in the right situation. And we will actually get into what the right situation to use shotguns is in just a moment. However, moving on then from the semi-automatic to the pump-action shotguns, they do suffer a little bit more from this problem, because if your first shot doesn't kill your enemy, there's a significant time period before you can actually fire off your second. And in this time period, there's a decent chance that your enemy, especially given the close quarter situations you are in, turns around and just ends your life right there, because he's using something like an F2000, AEK, FAMAS, ASVAL, something close quarter capable, but that isn't even necessary because the time between your shots is so large. If they have a good accuracy, they will end you with pretty much anything but a single firing shot pistol. So having talked about differences, let's move on to playstyle and tactics regarding a shotgun. Now, first and foremost, if you can, you should be aiming down sight. And this sounds kind of silly because we all know shotguns to be hip-fire weapons, close quarter exclusive weapons, and they have very good hip-fire accuracy. Most of them actually competing with things like PDWs. But in the end, there's just a too high chance that that one shot you're going to miss, especially with the pump-action shotguns, is just going to cost you your life. So always try to aim down sight, even if it's very quick. You will see in some of the clips I play here with something like the 870, for example, I always quickly aim down sight before shooting, and I generally get my kills much more consistently when doing that, because this magical cone of fire value, which for some reason we can't actually get our hands on the stats regarding it, is much less prevalent in these situations. You can still not get the deserved kill, but the chances are much smaller than when you are hip firing. On the other hand, if you're using a semi-automatic shotgun and you're in very close quarter situations, you can hip fire a little bit more because of course you've got that fire rate to back you up. If your second shot doesn't quite take your enemy with you, your third or fourth will, and you have enough munition and you have that fire rate to support just spam firing at your enemy, which is of course very nice and makes the use of this shotgun a lot easier versus something like the pump action shotguns. Now let's start and talk about how the stats of these shotguns affect their performance, their play style. Well, we have of course our spam firing semi-automatic shotguns, example the M1014 for example. They're very good at kind of run and gun situations. You can hip fire them a little bit, you can aim down sight if you want a more reliable kill. You're very versatile with the shotguns in the sense that within the space of close quarter combat you are free to engage most any target and most any target number. On the other hand, we have the pump action shotguns, something like the 870 for example, and those are not as versatile in their use. They're horrible against multiple targets because of course the delay between your shots. They're horrible at targets which you may not quite get because either you can't see their whole body or you're just unlucky and the spread of the shotgun doesn't favor you in this one engagement. That doesn't, however, mean they aren't as good as their counterparts. They just need to be used in a much slower methodological way than, for example, the semi-automatic shotguns. You need to know where your enemies are. You need to go into an engagement fully aware that you at any time rounding your gun you have to fire one shot. So it's a much more slower style of combat with a much more kind of map knowledge is required, enemy position is required versus something else which you can just kind of run and jump into it. I also would not prefer to use something like an 870 in extreme close quarter panic situations. These are amongst the worst panic guns in the game. Much like with the sniper rifle in close quarter, if you have to panic with that, you have a chance of hitting your enemy and getting a one-shot kill, but you also have a chance of missing him and then basically just instantly dying. So what would I recommend for when you should use what gun? Well, the lower player counts definitely favor something like a 870, something that is pump action shotguns. Of course, you'll do equally well with a semi-automatic shotgun in these situations as well. However, on higher player counts, I would not recommend something like an 870, a pump action shotgun, because you just usually run into too many targets at once for your gun to handle, no matter how good you really are. And I would also recommend to kind of just try both out and see which suits your playstyle more. Furthermore, in my experience personally, it really depends on the week of the day. What I mean by this, if I'm having a good day, I'm hitting all my shots, I'm accurate, I've got a quick reaction time, then playing something like a pump action shotgun is just going to heighten my skills, just going to improve my lethalness to the enemy team. If however I'm having a game or a day where I'm a little bit slower, I've not got my shots down quite as accurately and my team is losing, then picking up something like an 870 would just make me play worse. Now I'm constantly mentioning the 870 because for me it's just one of my favorite semi-automatic shotguns, in case you were wondering why constantly the 870, but of course I mean generally pump action shotguns. So if you're having a great day, try out something like a pump action shotgun. If you're having a bad day, then that's not the day you're going to try out the pump action shotgun. Go with something more semi-automatic. You're more likely to enjoy yourself and you're more likely to get the kills you are trying to get. Now with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, helped to clear up some questions regarding shotgun mechanics and ways to play shotguns in Battlefield 4. I will be doing a few more specific reviews about single shotguns. For example, I will be covering the Spaz because that has been a user request. I may also cover some of the other shotguns that I personally like to play and have experience with. So stay tuned for those videos. As per usual, feel free to leave your opinions regarding both the topic and my analysis down below in the comment sections, as well as your video suggestions for future videos. But otherwise, I hope to see you in the next Battlefield 4 video.